Hello, everyone, and welcome to our SESI Talks, which are part of the project WEP, Workers and the European Parliament. We want to bring to the attention of workers and citizens the initiatives of the European Parliament, especially in this difficult time due to the pandemic. Today, we're here again with Ms. Monica Kish, Policy Analyst of the European Parliament. Hello, and thank you for being with us again today.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
So, Ms. Kish, you are the lead author of the demographic outlook of the EU. And we know that the demographic situation has a huge impact on a lot of different areas. We're talking about the labor market, pension schemes, pension systems, for example, and many other areas. Can you give us what are the most recent developments and trends in the EU demographic situation right now?
Yes, indeed. So the demographic situation and demographic figures have a huge influence on a lot of domains in the economy. And when we are speaking about demographic trends, we have to speak about general demographic trends that existed already before the COVID pandemic. And there are also some smaller phenomena due to the pandemic itself. So first I will speak about general trends. So when we compare, for instance, figures in the 1960s and figures today, we can see that the proportion of the EU population compared to the global population is constantly decreasing. So in the 60s, we were at about 12%. And now the population of the EU is compared to the world population at about 6%, so a huge decrease. And this tendency will continue further, so we will arrive at 4% at the end of the century. So the EU is less and less important, at least concerning numbers, compared to the world population. And why this decrease? This decrease is mostly due to a shrinking number of live births. So, for example, if we compare fertility rates in the 60s, one woman had 2.5 children during her lifespan. Now this fertility rate is at 1.55 and it will further decrease. So there are less and less live births, and in parallel, the population of the EU is aging constantly. So in the 60s, we were at 70 years as average life expectancy. Now we are at 81, and at the end of the century, we can possibly reach 90 years. So the population is aging, and this makes that the average age, the median age of an EU citizen is also increasing compared to earlier figures. And this, of course, has an influence on the number of areas. And yes, I already mentioned that the pandemic itself had also a smaller influence on demography. Mainly here we have to mention a further decrease in fertility rates. So due to, for instance, quarantine, in vitro fertilization was not possible, or due to economic and health consequences of the lockdown, people deliberately reported their planned childbirth to later, so planned children were not born. And this tendency, unfortunately, might continue in the coming years until the pandemic will be definitely over. And another tendency which was observable in statistics is that mortality increased compared to previous figures. As a so-called excess mortality compared to the figures of previous years was 300,000 higher, so 300,000 more people died than to the same period of the years before. There were two peaks of this excess mortality. The first one in April 2020, and here the south and western parts of Europe were mainly concerned, so Spain, Italy, France. And the other peak was in November 2020, and here the central and eastern parts of Europe were more affected. And yes, these trends will further worsen the global picture of the EU population.
Absolutely. And given a little bit of focus on the labor area, how do you think these trends will influence the labor markets of the member states?
The aging population of the EU will definitely have an influence on the labor market, because there will be less and less people in working age. And this will mean that the total age dependency ratio, which means the number of people working compared to the number of people younger or older, will be worse and worse. Today we have 2 people in working age for every person who is dependent on them, so younger or older. And this ratio could change to 1-to-1, so 1 person at the labor markets supporting 1 person younger or older. And this will have consequences on pension systems, for instance, on social care, and on a wide range of areas. So yes, the worst impact of this demographic situation on the labor market is that the number of people in working age present on the labor market will decrease.
And what could the EU do to mitigate the consequences of the demographic changes in order to protect the labor market and the world of work?
I see different areas, different possible areas of intervention. Actually, in my opinion, there are 4 of them. Mm-hmm. The first one is the most important one, in my view, is tackling unemployment. So unemployed people should go back to the labor market through EU incentives. Luckily, this is an important point for the Commission of von der Leyen. And unemployment can be tackled by initiatives concerning the unemployed people. So, for instance, upskilling, reskilling, training, developing training opportunities, job-seeking opportunities, giving them assistance in order to get back easier to the labor market. And there could be other initiatives focused on the employers, so giving incentives to the employers to employ young people who are unemployed or long-term unemployed. And for instance, by giving them tax reductions or other economic means. So this would be one possible area of intervention. Then the second one would be getting groups which are not at the labor market yet, for instance, disabled people, migrants, or certain groups of women, helping them to get on the labor market or to work more. For instance, there are there's a group of women staying at home caring for young children, and if there were adequate childcare possibilities, so they would be more motivated to get back to the labor market. If there was more flexibility, flexible working hours, working arrangements, so they could be more motivated to go back to the labor market. So this is an area to explore. Then disabled people, part of disabled people is already on the labor market, but if their needs would be more respected in terms of working arrangements, working hours, then they could be more encouraged to go to the labor market. And migrants also, so mainly migrants from third countries. Here they have other types of needs, of course. Their diplomas and certificates should be duly recognized. And here skilling and upskilling, training is of huge importance. And assistance to these people, because they could have, for instance, language difficulties or other difficulties in integration to the labor market. So the second area of intervention is to encourage these people to get on the labor market. The third area is let people work longer. So this could be on a voluntary basis. So older workers who would like to stay at the labor market would be encouraged to do so by recognizing their skills, for instance, by giving them training to acquire new skills, digital skills, for example. And of course, this could be also mandatory by transforming pension systems. But here, special attention has to be paid to these older workers, because they could have specific needs, healthcare issues. So if people will work longer, these factors has to be taken into account. And there is a fourth area, completely different. This is the increased use of digitalization, artificial intelligence, and robots, because they could accomplish a certain task. There are certain tasks, for instance, routine tasks in factories or accountancy tasks. But here also attention has to be paid to the human workforce, to protect the human workforce, to protect jobs, because here is a danger which might concern low-skilled workers.
Absolutely. Well, Ms. Kish, thank you so much for all of this information. It really gives us an insight on basically what we should do and how we should see the labor markets in the future, and how the EU initiatives should focus on certain areas in order to, as you said, facilitate the access to the labor market to different groups of people, and obviously have some changes in the pension schemes, and have a look forward and pay attention to digitalization, which is the future that we're moving towards to. So thank you very much for your insight, and I advise everyone to go take a look at the research paper, which is available on the European Parliament website. Thank you so much for being with us again, and we hope to have a little chat maybe soon.